Well, I didn't get hired by the Phoenix Suns, so I guess that's a positive start. We'll get into it on Outside Shots right now. Welcome into another episode of Outside Shots. I am Saul Bookman, and EJ hopefully will be showing up, joining us shortly. He's having some technical issues this morning, but we need to get the show on the road. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about, and we were going to spend some time today just to kind of do a little Q&A back and forth. If you have questions, throw them up in the chat, and EJ and I will answer them as best as we can. But Brian Gregory is the new GM of the Phoenix Suns, and that comes with a lot of I feel like there's a lot of disgruntled people out there for a variety of different reasons. So let's get into some of that. Obviously, if you followed the PHNX Sun show last week, they talked about this at length. The connection with Ishbia and Gregory at Michigan State obviously is prevalent and is relevant in this situation. Coming over and doing this show or doing this, getting the position with the Suns a couple years ago, hitting on Dunn and Oso. I guess that's enough to be able to get you a premium position in sports. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful whatsoever, but listen, there's a lot to be desired when it comes to the resume and really, the background of Brian Gregory. But what I will say is this: I don't necessarily buy into, well, the resume should speak for itself in every situation. Sometimes it's a gut feeling, but with this organization and the feeling that has surrounded it the last couple of years and really the missteps along the way, it is hard to feel really good about, hey, they're just going to roll the dice on some person because they have a good feeling about them when their good feelings have not worked out in the past. So I get why everybody would be upset. And listen, do I think it's a home run hire? Not even close. Like, that's definitely not the kind of name or the type of name that you thought was going to come through that door. But listen, relationships matter, and obviously in this instance, it mattered a lot. But also, we just don't know what kind of happenings or dealings were going on behind the scenes. What kind of communication was had? What kind of how did Brian Gregory present himself on a day-to-day basis? Sometimes you go through things and he wasn't as successful in some endeavors, especially in the college landscape, as he was in others. At Dayton, had a great record, and could never get to the Sweet 16, but they got to the round of 32. That's as far as they got. And then obviously the missteps with Georgia Tech and Birmingham. So, or UAB, I should say. So it's not the greatest resume at all. Nobody's really impressed by it. But you did move a couple other pieces, and so we should acknowledge that. James Jones has been removed as the president of basketball operations, and now is just a senior advisor, quote unquote, which to me, I mean, it's a high likelihood that he's on his way out the door in June when his contract ends. So, you kind of understand that demotion to a certain degree. And then Josh Bartelstein, I know Josh gets a lot of flack from the fan base for some of the moves that he has been instrumental in. But I do also know this about just the situation and really the setup for Josh Bartelstein. And that is that he is predominantly on the operations and the business side of the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. So he has a large hand in that. So for people calling for his head and for him to be fired and all this other stuff, I just never really felt like that was going to happen because he was a valuable asset in other regards outside of just personnel moves. So I kind of always figured that he would still be the CEO, and sure enough, he is in that role. Will he have maybe a little bit less of a say at the table. Maybe one would assume so, but it also depends on who this head coach is going to be coming through that door. And right now, that's the next big piece that you're missing if you're the Suns. So I'm skeptical. I'll say that I'm skeptical in terms of what Brian Gregory has to offer and where we're going with this. But I mean, what else? We it's not like we can do anything about it. It's not like anybody's gonna, set up a protest to try and get this guy out. It's not like that's gonna happen. Nobody cares that much about this hire. And so it's all dependent on what we're going to see here in the next couple of months. And I'll tell you what, by the time we get to the season, I think we're all going to have a pretty good feeling about what Brian Gregory and his chops are in this position. No doubt about that, because he's got some moves that he can make in terms of Kevin Durant. What are you going to do with him? Bradley Beal, what are you going to do with him? What kind of draft capital? How are you going to set this team up around Devin Booker moving forward? Like all these moving parts that a lot of people are going to be wondering about. And it's going to start with that first hire. Who he hires as his head coach is going to be absolutely vital to the success of this franchise, obviously. And with that being said, we'll get the 2 cents of the one and the only Mr. Eddie Johnson. Noah had him hiding in the green room. What's going on, Eddie? How you doing this lovely morning?
I'm not doing that good.
You doing fine now, man?
I ain't doing that good. Computers drive me crazy, man.
Well, I'm sorry to hear
Man.
that.
You
But
know,
listen, you know what?
now I'm on my phone. I can barely see you. I'm looking
But you
at
can
some
hear me.
little.
You can hear the sultry tones of my voice. So that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, okay.
So
All right, Luther.
Hey, so EJ, I was just talking about Brian Gregory, obviously, and his hiring. When you saw that come across, what were your initial thoughts?
Really have none because I don't know him, and so I can't really make an opinion about it.
Have you ever met him?
Uh, yeah, yeah, I know. But my point is, I don't know him to that capacity to know exactly how he would do what he knows. And I think it's, you have to really trust the hire. And then
Uh-oh, I think we lost EJ. Man, my man's going through it today. Technical difficulties are getting the best of him as he froze, as he freezes again. Oh, poor EJ, just on the struggle bus today. So hopefully the Suns under Brian Gregory will operate better than EJ's Wi-Fi right now. Because that's certainly tight. And Noah, listen, if he comes in, just pull him up. We don't need to make him wait in the green room. He's not a guest. This is his show, so just bring him on, and we'll get started. So as we wait for EJ to get back in, all right, there he is. Let's do this one more time, EJ. Your initial thoughts on Brian Gregory?
yeah, it'll probably go out again, but I'm just over it right now. But no, again, you can't how can you evaluate someone you don't know? How could you be down on somebody you don't know? Right? So I think people always want the quick fix, right? They want to know who the person is. They want to go back and Google him and see what he's done in the NBA and all of that, right? And you had names out there, obviously, that people were very interested in. But again, you always have to give somebody a chance, man. That's all I would say. Uh, this is Matt Ishbia's, obviously, is his hire. It's somebody that he's familiar with, someone that he trusts. And up until now, he really hasn't probably hired all the people that he is probably going to hire. You remember when he took over the team was having success, so he couldn't come in and clean house. So as years go on, as any owner would do in any business, they eventually are going to put people around them that they know and they have a relationship with, and then you judge them. And I think, Matt was put in a tough position because, you buy a team and all of a sudden you're not going to come in and clean house, right? So I just think we have to just wait and see how it works out.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with you on that. And that's kind of what I just said right now is this, like, listen, I think the resume gives everybody pause for concern. And listen, the last couple years and the decisions that have been made, though at some of these points, people were really excited, and myself included, just have not worked out for a variety of different reasons. And the coaching front has not worked out in a variety of different reasons. So I think people give a little bit of pause into just having some blind faith in this organization being able to select the right people in the right places. When you see somebody with a resume kind of like this, where it doesn't seem like there hasn't been any track record of MBA, management or success, and so I think that's where people go with this. Is like, what are we doing here? Who are we're just picking our friends or whatever, however they want to position it. But at the end of the day, you don't know what these people are going to be capable of. And if Brian was around this organization quite a bit, he was he was in charge of player programming, which is a lot of dealings with the players, relationship wise, and making sure that things are you know um, suited for not only the players but their families, and taking care of a bunch of things that are even off the court. And so maybe through that's where he kind of made his chops, and people felt really comfortable with him and loved where his head was at, and they decided to go that way. I don't know. There's a lot of different things that we just don't see behind the scenes, and unless you're behind those closed doors, you'll never know. And so
You'll never
obviously
know.
they're going to support their boy, and
Yeah,
I think listen, you got to give everybody a chance. They're in the position now, so it's not like they're going to backtrack and just remove them just because the fans don't like it. So here we are, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. In addition to that, obviously, Orande Taliaferro became the team's new assistant GM, and then Chief Innovation Officer Paul Rivers will now add basketball operations responsibilities to his duties. So they're kind of repositioning and shuffling the deck. James Jones, senior advisor, I mentioned earlier, EJ, that it just seems like that's probably more of just a placeholder until his contract is up. But maybe he will be here for the duration. I don't know. When you think about James Jones' tenure as Phoenix Suns GM, what's your ultimate takeaway?
well, obviously, look, he got what? He got the best GM award. And what year was that? 21, 20? Yeah, 21.
21, 22. Yeah.
Uh, Look, you're only as good as your last. As a player, you're only as good as your last game, and within the game, you're only as good as your last minute, unless you're a star, where a coach will give you rope. As a coach, you're only as good as your last season. And as a GM, same thing. You're only as good as your last trade, your last transaction. It's just the way it is. It's the way life is in the professional leagues. We see it time and time again. Look, like I said, Mike Malone won a title a couple of years ago, and same team, pretty much, they fire him. Taylor Jenkins, who I thought one of the top coaches in the league, had Memphis playing at a high level this year. And when they were healthy, I think they had the second best record in the league. He gets fired. And both got fired a couple of weeks before the season was over. It's just the way it is, man. Players get traded, GMs get fired. So I just, James Jones is no different than anybody else. The team didn't have success the last 2 years, swept last year, didn't make the playoffs this year. Uh, Players maybe don't live up to the level they should. Who's going to be the one that's looked at? The GM. So, I mean, it's just a part of the business. It's nothing personal. It's just the way it is. That's why when you decide to get into this business, like, for me, I had a choice. I had a choice. I could have gotten into coaching. I had a few opportunities when I retired to be an assistant coach. A few opportunities to, start in the front office, at a lower level to work my way up. And I chose TV. Because again, as I always said, I wanted to be home with my kids. They were in middle school. I wanted to make sure I was there. I played till I was 40 years old. Had to make a choice. And fortunately for me, in broadcasting, we last a lot longer than everybody else. I mean, I've been doing this for 26 years with the same team. That's pretty unheard of.
Yeah.
So that's just the way I view it. So I like the choice that I made. Do I wish I at times had gone the other route to see if I could have done it? Yes, I do. But that's the choice I made. But any position in professional sports is vulnerable. That's all I can say. And you move on and you go to the next opportunity. And so that's just the way it is.
Obviously, like we could always do the pie in the sky thing, and hope for the best of the best moving forward. But like as you look at this position and you look at how the Suns are positioned and where they need to go and what moves they need to make, and really let's just take it from the sole standpoint of taking advantage of Devin Booker's age and being able to build a team around him that can get back to the finals. What do you need to see this offseason in terms of moves or whatever structures you want to put together for you to deem it to be successful before we even get to the season?
Well, player development is the first thing that I would like to see continue to improve. Uh, I saw some players this past year that I did not see improve to the level that I thought they should have from year to year. That sometimes is a lost conversation with people. They just tend to just want to replace. Like, I'm sure it's a lot of people, Houston Rocket fans, they want to replace Jalen Green today.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, don't make that mistake. This
No.
kid can play. He's 23 years old. He's going through it. He'll get better if he works hard. What I understand is he's a gym rat. He works hard. So I'll look at some of the people that's developing him. Why doesn't this kid have a good mid-range game to the level he should? Like, it's not just all on him. So that's how I would view it. It's like player development is uno, because I just didn't see like the ramp up, right? So like example, when Ryan Dunn comes back, I want to see him be able to get to move B, move C, and not just have move A and B, right? I want him to get the C, D, and E. Because right now, all he'll shoot the three if it's there, or he'll put it on the floor and he'll attack, but he really doesn't have a definitive idea of what's in store when he does attack, right? Like, does he shoot a running hook? Does he turn and give an up fake and go up and under? Does he just jump up from 12 feet and shoot a jumper? Like, all of those are like the next steps to your improvement. And I just always use me myself as an example. After my rookie year, I went to Pete Newell's basketball camp and I worked out with Kiki Vandeweghe and Purvis Short and Hakeem Olajuwon. All these pros were there and they were having great young years. And I was like, man, what is my struggle here? And I went there and I turned 9 points a game into 20 points a game the next year, and then went on to average 22 the year after that, 23 the year after that. So it's like I continue to improve every year because I added to my arsenal. And I wasn't athletic, but I was just able always to get my shot off. I always had an antidote to what you tried to make me do, and it made it impossible to guard me. That's what I want to see from Ryan Dunn. I want to see also at least develop the nuances of the correct way to shoot. That's it. Because once you develop the nuances of the correct way to shoot, the ball goes in for you. So I want to see that. I watch them work out before games all year, and I don't know who to put it on. I really don't. But I never saw him even try to change his shot. Like Mikal Bridges, his first year, and then during the season, you saw him change his shot. You saw his shot start to develop. Like you saw the improvement. I didn't see that last year. And I didn't see it during the year. And so that's the part that I'm going to pay more attention to at first. Like, the health of people, the bodies of people, how they show up. I actually believe that Grayson, even though I know when he looked in the mirror, he looked really good because he had lifted weights and he got stronger. I just think that his weightlifting was to the point where I thought that maybe he put too much bulk on.
Yeah, slowed him down.
So it's like, how do you improve each year? Because this was a good team of players. It just wasn't a good team. You all get that? It
Yeah.
was a good team of players. It just wasn't a good team. So now you change the coach. So the coach that comes in here, he's got to recognize that part of it. And now, what are you going to do to make things easier for these guys? So that's the part that I want to see improve more so than going out and getting another player and all of that, which is going to happen. But it starts with the guys that are here, man. Like, it's not a quick fix. Oh, we go get that guy. We bring him in. We're going to be okay. No, we won't. No, we won't. Not until these other guys improve and they get better. That's how it works because every other team is going to probably get better. And so that's the part that I want to see more so than going out and getting this player or getting rid of this player and everything's going to be fine now. It's not how it works. I wish that's how it works, but not at this level, man. It's just, the competition is just too close.
That's one of the things that I feel like a lot of people do overlook, EJ, is the development process of this. And I think sometimes you can get locked in to thinking about the stars that you have and how good they are, and it can erode some of the development focus that you should have it as an organization. And in case in point, like when I look at a franchise like the Warriors, you know, they've been very successful in developing their players. The ones that are on the end of the bench that aren't seeing a lot of burn, those guys might see burn in year 2, 3, 4 because of the development that they take with their program. And that's something that has sorely been lacking really since I would probably say the second to last year for Monty. I thought that everything was on track. I thought Monty did a really good job of developing players. You saw Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges take jumps. DeAndre Ayton had a jump in the playoffs. In back-to-back years, he had good series that were solid. And so you felt like, okay, maybe they're getting to a point, and then it just kind of all stalled and flat. It kind of went flat. And then you got KD and everything kind of stunted growth all the way around. And so I would like very much to see the next head coach come in here and have a plan for the development side of things, because I'm sure they asked, well, at least I hope they asked Coach Bud and Coach Vogel, what their development process was going to be, but it was very hard to identify what that was, at least in the barometer of games, because you would see guys that would have these runs of, maybe they would drop 15 in a game, or, Bol had 32 in Houston, and then the next game barely see any burn. And it's just like, all right, well, where are we going with this? Because I think it's not just about I think it's easy to associate the lack of consistency on the court in games and relate it to what is happening off the court in terms of the development for a said individual, because I just don't think that the consistency that they were showing towards some of these guys in the development this year, Colin Gillespie is probably a good example as well, where they just would have good games and then they wouldn't see the floor. And despite that, the team was already struggling and losing, and these guys were bringing energy. They're bringing something different to the table. So I would very much agree with you. I want to see development become a priority in this organization, because it's not going to get any better if you're constantly relying on free agents or trades to try and improve your roster every single year. At some point, you got to build from within. Otherwise, you're just going to be another kind of Clippers organization where you're constantly just trading and moving and hoping for the best.
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. And that's the disappointment that I think I had this year, is that the way certain situations was handled by Bud. Like, there's no way Ryan Dunn should have been benched at that period during the season that he was. Like, I could not see any rhyme or reason why all of a sudden you stop playing the very guy that picked it up 94 feet, defending every possession, learning how not to be afraid to shoot, uh, seeing that he's growing, and to just short circuit him in the middle of that process. And we saw what happened. It took his confidence. So when he started playing him again, the kid was hesitant. I don't understand that. I was disappointed that I don't know if the players stood up for that decision, but I know if I was on that team, I would have like, Coach, what are you doing? I mean, this dude right here, man, that's the energy we need. We need it from him and Oso. Like, they come in and they just try to play the right way. Now you just got to get better at the mixture of players that you put in there with them. Like, don't penalize them. Like, so that part bothered me. And then the Bol Bol situation. Like, it was pretty obvious that Bol Bol had a tremendous rhythm scoring the ball. And he developed confidence because he was starting to get minutes. He was starting, and you could tell that he was starting to get better. He was being more aggressive with his shooting. Like, he just didn't shoot when he was open. He actually tried to create. And all of a sudden, the guy, scoring 18 points, like, easily, and not shooting a ton of shots and shooting a tremendous percentage. Like, okay. And then you stop playing him because you don't like a certain thing he might do. Now, I agree. If Bobo, if you're going to be out there, you got to give me something else. You got to go rebound the ball. You got to block shots. I get it. Push him. Teach him. Like, and I'm not saying, I don't know if they were teaching him or not. I wasn't there most of the time. But my point is, to short circuit him that way, like it was, and the team seemed like they were playing well, to go smaller, that part bothered me. Like, because I put myself in that situation. I was that player, man. Like, I had to always prove I could do other things if my scoring wasn't there. And it was a battle for me, but I enjoyed the battle. Like, I enjoyed the challenge. I told every coach I played for, look, listen, I don't want anything from you, but I want to take some stuff from you. Meaning, like, I want to take your mindset on how you view me and change it. But you got to give me a chance. You got to give me a chance to do it. You just can't automatically think I can't. Because now you and I got problems. Because then I can question you. Can you? Can you draw a play? Can you command the huddle? Can you teach us? Like, so don't put me in that situation to question you when you're putting me in that situation where I got to question myself. Like, why this guy? And then I'm thinking about he doesn't like me, and all of that. Now I want to be traded. Now, see, I go into another mode now because I think it's personal. I think you might have favorites. Like, all that comes into play. And the way he handled the Bol Bol situation to me was just not right. It just was not right. And that part as an announcer bothered me because I saw it and I saw myself in that situation because I've been there. And so that part, man, has to improve. Whatever coach we bring in here, the environment in that regard, because I'm telling you, our talent level is not that bad. I remind people looked at our roster before the season, and some people actually thought we had a chance to go to the final. Okay, so let that sink in. So it's that part has to get better.
It does have to get better. And I have some recommendations and solutions for the new GM and the new head coach, but we'll get into that after these messages. Folks, we talk about at length. First and foremost, we are not frauds here. Okay, here on this program, if we are going to talk about it, that is because we engage in it. And so when we talk about Circle K, yeah, you're damn right. I go to Circle K. Circle K is actually right down the street from my house. It's like maybe not even a quarter mile from my house. And so it's the closest location I can get to get premium gas at a premium price. And listen, you can save 25 cents off your first 5 Phillips by downloading the Inner Circle app per gallon. So that's a win. You can save a ton of money on beverages such as these Frosters, Polar Pops, 79 cents off, or 79 cents for a drink. If you use your Inner Circle app, you get it for 69 cents, which is always nice. And then they always do giveaways and snack deals and different things. So all you got to do is visit circlek.com/big giveaway to enter for prizes, cash, and a ton of more things. Plus, they will text you and let you know when the deals come through. They're doing 40 cents off a gallon randomly throughout the summer and throughout the year. So hook yourself up, Inner Circle app today. And also, as I said, listen, we always practice what we preach, right? This is a Brandon Bills hat. It's one of their different styled ones. I got this the other day. Thought it was pretty dope. A little green, kind of like a military green, I guess you could say, but it has the orange cactus in the middle, and I think it looks fly as hell. So get yourself one of these or one of the plethora of different merch options and hat options that they have at Brandon Bills, Arizona's premium headwear and apparel company. And we're hooking you up with 20% off by just using promo code PHNX today. And again, EJ's rocked the hat before. PHNX has its own style hat. If you want to go to gophnx.com/merch and take a look at that stuff, we got 3 different Brandon Bills hats on there that are fantastic. But the Sun Devils, the Wildcats, the Suns all have relationships with Brandon Bills, a locally sourced product started right out of Mesa. So you can hook yourself up today. Again, use promo code PHNX to save yourself 20% off on your first order. All right. So as I mentioned, first going back to your development stuff, this is where I think I'm going to create a position, EJ, a sort of a culture builder, if you will. Okay. I think that if you have identified that in your locker room, maybe you don't have the leadership that maybe you needed, or you have anybody that has an idea of what it should look like. Listen, it sounds weird to say that when you have James Jones, who's been around championship teams before, he's been in that heat culture. He's been around LeBron. You would think that he would understand what the culture should feel and look like in the building. But from everything you see on the court and all the disconnectedness off the court, from sound bites to clips and all this other stuff, it just felt like there was no really cohesive message or feel in that environment. And it's really odd to be at a disconnect from where Matt Ishbia and Josh Barlstein want to go as an organization. And I think they've done a tremendous job at building the culture of the organization itself off the court. But I think within that locker room and on the court, there's been some complexities there that need to get figured out, and they need to get figured out ASAP. And if they don't have this person, they should create a position where you're basically just the culture builder, making sure that there is harmony, there is consistency, and more importantly, that there's accountability when things are going a little awry. I don't give a damn if you're Kevin Durant or if you're Oso Ighodaro. Are you holding yourself up to that standard? Are you holding yourself up to be the representative of the organization the way that they want to be represented? If not, then you need to identify those opportunities to move on from those players and go a different way. And that's where I think this next iteration of the Suns with a new GM and a new head coach has to start. They have to build this culture that Matt Ishbia is trying to identify in terms of moving forward. And so clearly they saw something in Brian Gregory that they thought would match up with what they want as an organization, identity-wise. But, you know, you got about 6 minutes left to go, EJ. I don't know if they have a clear idea yet, and I'm interested to see if that does come to fruition.
Yeah, I think that should be the purpose, right, of any person that takes over. He's had an opportunity to sit back and be up close and personal and see the good things that happen, the bad things that happen, or what needs to change. I think a happy environment from everybody, from not just, a lot of times people just want to focus on the players. And that's what I always say, organizations lose championships, organizations win championships. You don't have separation. It's just not the way it works. It's so much goes on to make sure the players are prepared to go out there and do their job, not just from the coaches, but from the training staff, from the medical staff, from making sure that they're lifting, making sure that they're doing the right things on the court, understanding the playbook, the camaraderie, spending time around each other, getting to know your teammates, making sure that psychologically that they're in tune with what their job is and something outside of the sport is not taking their attention and affecting their play on the floor. All of those things come into play. And it's a lot of people surrounding the players to make sure that that happens. And so all those people have to be in line with each other to make it work. The one thing that I always will push back on in regards to the amount of people that are around players is that you have a lot of competition within those people. And sometimes they're competing with each other to see who can get the best result from that player so they can elevate themselves. And that's the one thing I've cautioned on. I've always said this. Like when I played, we had two assistant coaches, one head coach. We had one trainer. Now, I'm not saying the other side of that is good. No, I'm not saying that. I think having more support people around players and stuff like that is a good thing if they're in line with each other. And that's the part that now somebody has to make sure that that line stays positive, right? Because it can get out of whack. There's a lot of backstabbing in this business, and you have to be careful. And for me as a player, like, and any workout guy will tell you, like I had Jim Boylan in Houston. Uh, I had Frank Hamblin in Kansas City, Sacramento. I had Tim Gergerich in Seattle. They'll tell you when I walked out on the floor, I worked. But I only wanted to hear one or two voices. Dude, I don't want somebody sitting over there and he comes up to me and privately says, what, Eddie, look, dude, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't. Like, I'm trusting in what they're telling me. Now, once I stop trusting in them, then I'll come to you. But I don't need you coming behind them and telling me to do something else. Go kick rocks, dude. Like, and I'm honest. I have told those assistants or like, lower level guys that. Like, no, dude. No. And if you don't believe me, if you ever play golf with me, the one pet peeve I have, if I'm not even playing right, if I'm struggling, is for somebody to come up to me and say, Eddie, man, I don't think you're not taking the club back far enough. Get the heck out my face. Like, now it's one thing to come up and mess with me about it, right? But it's another thing to be sincere and think you're teaching me. Hey, dude, I don't want to hear that right now. Like, you've never said anything to me about that, so I don't need to hear that. Like, I'll work my way out of it. Like, and I normally work my way out of it, right? So it's just that like competition, man, that goes on that I just wish that like all these assistant coaches and all these different extracurricular people would just be a little bit lower, you know, so it's more camaraderie. Like you know the person. Like I have to be honest, we travel with like 60, 65 people. And think about it, over the last 3 years, all those people have changed because the coaching changes. I have no idea who they are. And that bothers me. Oh, it really bothers me because I think you know me. Like, if I walk into a room or if I walk in somebody, I want to say hello. And I would love to know, like, in something past hello. Like, hey man, what's going on? And like it's a conversation that like because the camaraderie has to be important. You got 60 people, man, and you don't even know who the heck they are. Like that part just to me it's insensitive. To me, it's just it doesn't work well. It just
Okay.
doesn't, and I hope that part changes.
It's kind of like Steve Harvey on the Kings of Comedy, where he was just like, I don't even know what concerts are supposed to be now because there's like 50 MFers on stage and all of them got a mic and they're all talking about stand up and scream. Like, MFer, you scream. I paid money to come watch you scream, not me. And
Yeah,
so that's kind of how it feels right now. But EJ, listen, I know you got to get going, so we'll let you get out of here, and I'll take the show down to the end for you. So have a good rest of your day. Okay.
yeah, go ahead. Well, you taking the mic right now.
I mean,
See,
hey,
see what
I
I'm
got
saying?
I
You
got to do
just
what I
talked
got to do.
about people. You just gave an example of taking the mic, and
Listen,
you sending me off. I'm the mic.
listen, listen,
You
listen.
said I'm Drake.
Listen,
Drake.
I'm a rule follower, and
Drake.
you said
I
that you
can't
had an
help it.
out, and I am
Drake.
executing your deal.
I'm LL Cool J.
Okay, all right.
You
Thanks,
get
Eddie.
that?
Till next week.
LL. That's LL. You don't know who LL is? LL.
Noah, cut him off, Noah. All right, that's EJ. Again, he'll be back next week. He had to go do something today, so had to get out of here a little early. But we do have a super chat from Psycho Blue, and that reads: B-Ball Cthulhu predicts the classic quote new GM smell end quote, where the Suns have a quick turnaround the first 1 to 2 years and everything is dandy. Then a crossroads happens, and we really learn what the GM's about. That's an interesting perspective. Um, I don't think this is the case here because the complexities of the moves and the limitations you have are so severe right now that man, this could very well be a situation where you don't want to be this guy, but you want to be the guy who replaces this guy. It could be that situation, or listen, if Brian Gregory is able, listen, the one thing he could do without a doubt to rally the fan base and get everybody to feel a little bit more optimistic in terms of what he's going to bring to the table is if he could somehow figure out this Bradley Beal situation. If he's able to trade him, oh my gosh, he's going to be legendary from day one, right? If he's able to trade, it doesn't matter if they get assets back in return or not. Like if they're able to get rid of that salary, I mean, I feel like the heavens open for a little bit, you know. If he's able to get assets back in addition to that, I mean, build a statue now, right? Like it would be incredible. But, um, but there's also the Kevin Durant situation. Like if he's able to trade Kevin Durant and get some valuable pieces, and now listen, the subjectivity of the valuable pieces is something that we're going to debate for quite a while. It's probably all summer because some of us think strip it down to the studs. Some of us think, oh well, let's build around Devin Booker, so let's be smart in terms of the pieces. Matt Ishbia feels like they can be shrewd and calculated in terms of their moves and still not like strip it down to the studs, but still kind of rebuild, but kind of retool. I think I am probably in the camp of I think you can get some draft capital and maybe one or two younger pieces that fit what you're trying to do culture wise and really activity wise on the court. And I think that would be a win. There's been a lot of trade proposals out there, a lot of people throwing a bunch of random stuff, mostly Houston Rockets related. Houston's going to be in play for Kevin Durant, but they also might be in play for Giannis. And listen, I think you'd be silly if you're the Houston Rockets and you don't try to give everything you got to try and get somebody like Giannis. I mean, Kevin Durant's phenomenal, but Giannis has still got more years left on the table in his career. And I mean, Giannis is just, I mean, listen, that would just be a crazy get at this stage of Giannis's career. So, but Kevin Durant being a perfectly capable plan B is not the worst thing in the world either if you're Houston. But there's a lot of other teams that are going to be in that mix. You know, we'll see what happens with OKC and Minnesota, you know, here in the second round. You know, do both of them make it to the Western Conference Finals? Do one? Do the other? Who knows? You know, obviously, you know, OKC is in a position they should feel really good about where they're at and in the second round. And then obviously the Warriors taking on the Timberwolves is going to be a pretty fun battle too. So we'll see where this goes. I'm excited to see where the playoffs go. And I'm really excited to see how this is going to shake out and how it's going to affect the Suns, because there are some pieces to the puzzle in the draft that I think if you're able to get another draft pick, especially earlier than, you know, where you're going to be drafting in the late first round, then there's some pieces that can immediately help you. And maybe even development pieces that are worth waiting for about a year or two. Listen, seeing Cooper Flagg in person was way different than seeing him on TV. Okay. So I watched, obviously you all know that I'm an Arizona guy. I watched him play Duke down in Tucson, not in person, saw it on TV. And, you know, good player. I've seen him play against other teams across the country, like good player. But seeing him in person, the size, the physicality, I just was blown away at like, oh man, this guy is like NBA ready. Like he just absolutely is. Like, is he going to be a development? You know, is he going to take a little bit of time to develop? Sure, of course. But like guys like him, Maluak from Duke, again, like physically, you can see where he's going in his career, and you got to feel like if you were an organization that took him, that like that's a solid pick, and that's a solid opportunity to get a good player that can develop into a rim protector and a you know, a very solid piece. You look at Con Knipple, same thing. You look at Carter Bryant from Arizona, same thing. But these are all guys that are going to be in that top 15 to 20 range. The Suns aren't drafting in the top 20. So how can they position themselves to get there? That's where you hope that a guy like Brian Gregory is going to be able to figure that part out, because they need assets and they need contributors like fast. So if you're not going to strip it down to the studs and sell off all your assets, then these are the types of moves that are going to prove your worth as a GM. Like, how can you get into that top 20? How can you position the Suns to get into a space where they can get some valuable assets? I don't know. Kevin Durant is probably the first piece that's going to have to be figured out so you can get some capital to do that. And if not this year, then, you know, obviously you got to set yourself up for the future. But if we're talking about like now, then looking at this draft class, I think it's a pretty good draft class. And I think you have an opportunity, if you can get into that top 20, to get a good player that can contribute on day one. They might need some development. Like if you look at like a guy like Carter Bryant, for instance, he's got some gaps in his game that he has to fix. That's a fact. But he's a good enough player to be able to throw him out there and develop him as a 3-and-D wing until he gets to that point where he can consistently be, you know, a bigger contributor for a longer stretch of time. So those are the types of players. Like Ryan Dunn came in, and there was like egregious efficiencies in his shooting. We all knew that coming in. You hope that he would develop as the season goes along, and he had some ups and he had some downs, but defensively, that was the one thing that you knew was always going to be there. The type of player that the Suns are going to have to go after at that 30 or that you know, the bottom of the first round range are guys that you have to almost lock in on. Do they have one trait that you know you can count on, and then can you develop the rest? That's the kind of player you have to get when you're like past that 20 range. If you're in the top 20, I think you can find a player that you have to have one discernible asset. And then the rest, like, is there not a steep drop off? It should be a moderate drop off. It shouldn't be like I'm phenomenal on defense and I'm just absolute butt on offense. Like, it can't be like that. And that's where I think some teams fall, you know, they fail, is because they see somebody that has good traits all the way across the board, but not one outstanding trait that'll keep them in the league. That's where every single time, if I ever have a thought on an NBA prospect, that's where my head goes, is like, what's the one thing that they can do that will keep them in the league for 10 years? If they don't have that one thing, then they probably won't have that one thing, because you got to be elite at something. You have to be NBA elite at something. You can't just be good, not in the NBA, because you will get faded out. So that's kind of where I would go with this, is can Brian Gregory make enough moves to be able to get somebody that has one discernible asset that feels like it would fall in line with what the team needs right now, and then build everything else. You know, we'll see. We'll see. It is a development process. Somebody in the chat just said, Wow Factor said, Saul, I disagree. We can go after Nick Clifford. Yeah, you could. But there's also so many other players out there that would be good assets. Now, you're also talking about trade assets, right? You have an older roster now. You need to get younger. I think that's, everybody knows that. Like, this Suns roster got really old really quick, and it felt like they were they were one of the younger teams in the league, and all of a sudden they just fast forward into one of the older teams in the league. They need to find that balance and get back to that kind of that younger movement, because as you're looking in the playoffs, a lot of young talent in the league, a lot of that young talent still in the playoffs. The veteran laden squad of like the Warriors is kind of the outlier, to be honest with you, because if you look at like Minnesota, young talent, like Ant is leading the charge there, obviously. Jaden McDaniel, like young player. Like you have some pieces there that are surrounded by veterans like Gobert, and such, and Mike Conley and stuff like that. So you look at OKC, obviously that's a youth movement, right? You look at Boston, they have a nice blend of young and old, so like the premium teams, Cleveland, young and old, like that's what you need. And I think if you skew too much into one direction, you can pay a price for that. If you look at Houston, one of the things that they were missing desperately was just that shot maker, that veteran shot maker, that when you needed a bucket, you knew you could rely on. They don't have that guy. They need that guy. They thought Jalen Green was going to be that person, but he wasn't. So that's why Kevin Durant now all of a sudden vaults to the top of their list, because if they have a guy like Kevin Durant, from their perspective, oh, that's going to position us really well if we run into the same scenario next year against a team that's a veteran-laden team that just knows how to win. But is that the answer for them? I don't know. Like you're talking about, you would lose some assets at that point, and that is kind of the calculated risk if you're Houston, to do so and give up too quickly on what you're trying to build there. And they have a culture. They set Ime Udoka has set that culture, and that's what I kind of go back to in regard to, like Mark R said, like culture doesn't win championships. You're right. Culture doesn't win championships. Winning wins championships, obviously. Building a winning culture, though, can help facilitate the ease of the process to get to a championship. If everybody's bought in, listen, there's nothing more difficult than trying to build something from scratch, and you have 10 different people pulling the rope in 10 different ways. They all might be talented, but if we're not pulling the rope in the same direction, or at least moderately in the same direction, like you're screwed. You're screwed. Like, look at the Suns, for example. That's a perfect example. On paper, they were talented before the season started. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, the list goes on. But when they're all not on the same page, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So they didn't have a good system. They didn't have a good culture there in order to feel like they were all moving in the same direction. And that's the most important part. And I think that's where, when you identify the weaknesses of this Suns organization, That is at the top of the list of what they've got to improve. They have to improve that culture. They have to improve the feel and the vibe around that basketball team. It can't feel like it's labor to go to work and do something that you absolutely love. And I think, for those of you out there that have done a job that you've always wanted to do in an industry that you thought you loved, when that joy gets taken away, it's almost double worse. Or it almost makes the situation far more toxic than it normally would have been if it was a job that you didn't really care about. It's because you invested your heart and soul into this particular field. And I think when players start to feel that way, like it's not a joy to go to the gym or practice because they're just going through it, or there's no clear identity in terms of what they're trying to do on a day-to-day basis, or there's no clear messaging, there's no clear vibe, there's no clear direction in where we should be going. It's just kind of a day-to-day, we're just kind of fly by the seat of our pants kind of deal. That's where you lose players. That's where you lose entire front offices or organizations kind of fall apart, because they can't identify within themselves what they want to be. And when you don't have a clear idea of what you want to be, you're going to fail. 100% you're going to fail. So it doesn't matter if you have to go through some tough times, as long as you're sticking to your own process, like OKC did for quite a while, where they believed in their process and they stuck to it and they stuck to it and they stuck to it. And now you're looking at a team that is in the second round again in back-to-back years, one of the favorites to go to the NBA Finals, and if not win the NBA Finals. If that's where you want to be, and that's where it felt like we were there. Chris Paul gets here, we go to the finals. You got a young team, you got a young squad. That game 7 happens, things get a little wonky. The next year, it doesn't go so well, especially around Christmas time. Things are kind of, the Suns are losing games that you felt like they shouldn't be losing. And you're like, okay, is this thing off the rails? New ownership comes in, they want to make a move. They saw their opportunity. Boom, Kevin Durant, 4 first-round picks, 2-star players gone, and now the aftermath of that is where you're at right now, and you got to rebound. You got to fix it. So a lot of work to be done, and it is going to be a challenge for this organization. But I do enjoy speaking with you all and seeing your comments in the chat. I do appreciate the time you took to listen to Outside Shots this morning. Sorry about EJ's delays at the beginning, and sorry that he had to leave early, but he will be back next week, and we'll be back in studio to talk about more Suns basketball. But in the meantime, make sure you follow him at JumpShot8, and make sure you follow me at Saul_Bookman. We also do have one more super chat, and that super chat is here. It is Brian Abdallah. Eddie's about to talk to himself for the next 4 hours. Maybe. I know he did have something important that he had to get to. So. But anyway, so make sure you subscribe to the Outside Shots podcast. It is its own single feed on Spotify, Apple, wherever you partake in your podcast. And make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Outside Shots. Until next time, peace.
We all silly like the mayor.